The only thing I'm going to give this new movie is it's very gay. It's very, very gay. And gay in a way that somehow was underrepresented in the original Mulan movie.
You are about to enter the courtroom of the Honorable Judge KennieJD. Does she have any movie critic experience? No. Does she have any authority? No. But they gave her a show anyways. The movies are bad. The cases are good. The rulings are final. This is in defense of...
Hi, hello, and welcome to In Defense of, a More Butter production. I am your host, judge and jury, KennieJD. And on this here podcast thingamadoodle that we do every week, we talk about movies that did poorly in the box office or got bad ratings and decide whether or not they deserved them. That echo was intimidating. Okay. Hey, yo. Feel free to subscribe here on More Butter, or if you're listening to us in podcast format on Spotify or anywhere else you are listening to podcasts, feel free to give us 5 stars to run that engagement up, baby. Thank you. So last week we talked about Ali. I had opinions. I gave them. That's what you watched the episode for. I can't tell you everything, man. No, I'm joking. It was Will Smith playing Muhammad Ali. And they did quite a general overlook on his life, particularly his relationship with the Nation of Islam and his relationship with women and his relationship with boxing, obviously. So if you'd like to check out that video, I'm sure it will be linked somewhere in the description box, or of course just on the More Butter Here YouTube channel. The YouTube channel of More Butter Here. Yes. This week, oh my God, this week we're talking about Mulan, not the good one, the other one, the live action, Jesus Christ. So I remember back in 2020, a lot of people wanted me to talk about Mulan on my channel, but I just didn't want to watch it, to be quite frank with you. And that's saying a lot, because I watched some shit. And if you are on the list of things that I straight up don't want to watch, that's admittedly in some ways kind of impressive. But I decided, it's been some time. I've healed. But I don't care enough to watch this enough to do a deep introspective about it the way that I would have to for my own series. If you're unfamiliar with me, I just realized some people probably may watch this and don't watch my channel. Hi, I have my own channel, and on that channel is where I talk about bad movies and I put my makeup on. And in the course of doing that, I go often scene by scene talking about the things that happen in the movie, and I just don't care enough about this terrible version of a very good movie to do that. Also because when I do that, I have to watch movies often more than once in order to do that, to have any meaningful thought around it. This podcast I find is more so my immediate reactions and just cathartic feelings of pain and misery. Or confusion, because if it's a decent movie, I'm just why did y'all not like this movie? I don't understand. Anyway, or why did you not go see this movie? Anyway. So this movie, as hopefully we all know, but I realized that some people were born in the 2000s. And that's wild to me. Mulan was originally was a movie. Well, not originally. I think there's folklore around actual Mulan, right? Yeah, there's a story called The Ballad of Mulan. But the Disney movie was a 1998 animated movie, which was amazing. That I still quote to this day. But this was this very lofty ambition of a live action fantasy film that took itself way too seriously, took away all the fun of the original movie, and gave us more of something along the lines of a semi-Marvel-esque kind of experience that no one asked for, that no one wanted. So again, Mulan is a 2020 American fantasy action drama film. That's a lot of descriptors. Produced by Walt Disney Pictures, of course. It's directed by Nikki Caro. It is the live adaptation of the 1998 animated film of the same name, itself based on the Chinese folklore story Ballad of Mulan. The film stars Yifei every fucking week. Yifei Liu in the title role, alongside Donnie Yen, Ji Ma, Jason Scott Lee, Yosun An. If you just put the Hangul, that would help me so much. Yosun An, Ron Yuen, Gong Li, and Jet Li. I didn't see Jet. What was Jet Li in this movie? He was the king? He was the emperor? What? He was unrecognizable. I didn't even. Oh my god. Jet Li was in it. In supporting. That's funny as hell. I didn't even recognize him. That's so funny. Anyway. So originally plans for a live adaptation of Mulan were starting to take place around 2010, but of course, as all things that should have stayed there, sat in development hell for like most of a decade. But eventually filming did start taking place, particularly in New Zealand and China. Over the course of production, the movie was subject to several controversies, including but not limited to simply stepping away from source material, but also like filming in an area that was known for having internment camps within the Uyghur genocide, so not great. There's also a bit to be said about hiring of non-Chinese actors, which as someone observing from the outside, I could see how that'd be very frustrating in regards to like, you know, how racist people see Asian people as all Chinese. And then you put every East Asian descent in a movie. I could see how this would kind of leave a bad taste in some people's mouths. The lead actress also found herself in some controversy as well in regards to some comments that she made in regards to China. I'm not super familiar with the specifics on that. Sorry, had a moment. So I don't feel comfortable opining one way or another about that. But I do remember people kind of saying like that's another reason why I have no interest in actually seeing the movie, outside of it being a shitty live action remake of a movie that was very good. And then in addition to that, COVID happened. So originally Mulan held its world premiere at the Dolby Theater in Hollywood on March 9th, 2020. The film was originally scheduled for a wide theatrical release later that month, but was canceled in the United States after being delayed several times due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, I would imagine another thing that probably wasn't great is a lot of like anti-Asian sentiment in the beginning of COVID. Well, people are racist all the time, but you know what I mean. Particularly COVID inciting a particular type of anti-Asian hate, or not even a particular type, but an increased prevalence in the forefront of media of anti-Asian hate. So a movie based in Chinese history probably wouldn't have done so well for people that don't like Chinese people. I don't know why I turned Cockney to say that, but so I'm saying all this to say there's a lot of reasons why people didn't go see this movie. One, they probably wouldn't have seen it anyway because it was a live adaptation of Mulan, a movie that was fine if you would have left it the fuck alone. Two, people racist. Three, people mad at China for legitimate reasons. Again, filming in that area where they're having a whole ass genocide, not great. So yeah, there was a lot going against the movie. And so I think that's probably why I was kind of curious about watching the movie in and of itself. Like, is it as, because there's a lot externally, right, affecting the movie. So I'm curious, like, was the movie itself, if we kind of take away all of that context for better or worse, how does that affect the actual film itself? Spoiler, it sucked ass. Regardless, if you didn't even need the controversy to not go see this movie. This movie sucked. But yes, I'm getting ahead of myself. The film was released on September 4th, 2020 by Disney Plus for a premium fee known as Premier Access in countries where the service had launched. And the film had a traditional theater release in countries without Disney Plus that had that particular component. So at the box office, due to its overall limited theatrical release as a result of the pandemic, the film grossed just under $70 million, not including revenue from Disney Plus Premier Access. It's a big hit considering they had already put in production $200 million. Again, y'all just be putting millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to one film. I guess, I don't know what I thought. I guess I was under the impression that films costing more than $100 million were more of a rarity than I guess I'm fully aware of. You know what I mean? I think through the course of IDO, I've really realized they put some crazy money for some garbage. Because did you really think you were going to get $200 million worth of people to go see fucking live action Mulan? Even, again, without the controversies? Mulan grossed $5.9 million on its opening weekend. Again, it's not looking great. But one of the things that we could say is a tick in the positive column is that it was able to have the highest debut in 2020 for Thailand and Singapore, grossing 1.2 million and 700,000 respectively. So fun facts. The budget for Mulan makes it the most expensive film ever made that was directed by a woman. The filmmakers drew inspiration from different Chinese adaptations of the ballad while writing the film. It took over a year to cast Hua Mulan. Then in February 2020, it was announced that the sidekick from the original film, Mushu, played by Eddie Murphy, was removed due to the character's negative reception in China. Can someone explain that to me? I loved Mushu. I was like, honestly, that was one of my biggest gripes about this movie. It's like, what happened to Mushu? Is it like a disrespect of ancestors thing? I could see that. But someone explain that to me if anyone has any insight on like what that's about. Because I'm curious, because again, that is one of my biggest gripes about this movie is like, it's not funny, and it's because there's nothing fun about it. There's nothing joyful about this movie except for like small moments when they try to make a shitty joke and it falls on its ass because it's not funny. And I was trying to figure out like what's wrong with it, and I was like, what happened to Mushu? But as far as okay, we're at a disagreement. So I just looked at the Rotten Tomatoes. The critics' reviews are shockingly high. It's 73% for some reason. Audience score 47%. That makes more sense to me. From critics, the combat set pieces are terrific. The scale of the storytelling is epic. I will give it that. That is true. They gave it a 3 out of 5. Other opinions would lend probably more so towards my opinion, which is, I can only describe Mulan as a visually spectacular disappointment. Perfect. I think that sentence alone is great. Its cast, its attitude, its overall eagerness to please, all benefits, one would think, don't add up to a good movie. They add up to a blueprint of the movie this ought to be. While glorious to look at, the movie still feels slightly hollow. All the right pieces are there, but an emotional connection to the character is lacking. Spot on to my particular issues with this movie. And that is, outside of it just not being good, this movie is so soulless. There's something truly dissonant from enjoying or feeling anything in regards to Mulan as a character. I suspect that it has to do with Mulan as a character. like they write her as this kind of, I don't know if this is entirely the writing. I really do think it's the actress's performance. I find her hollow, emotionless on screen, and there's moments where I thought her face would do something. And it's just stoic she has the same face the whole movie, which is a phenomenon that truly baffles me. Her face does not change whether someone's living, someone's dying, whether she's being asked to meet the matchmaker, whether she's laughing, it doesn't make sense, whether she's crying, she just doesn't move her face. And that's where I was just like, you took a year to find somebody, and this is where we landed. We couldn't find anybody else to do this. So synopsis, for those of you that don't know the story of Mulan, you haven't seen the movie, I'm truly shocked. But again, some of y'all were born in the 2000s apparently, and that freaks me out. So let's So the story of Mulan is the story of a girl named Mulan who decides to disguise herself as a boy, as a man, to join the army in place of her ailing father. She hides within the army as a dude to defend the empire from invaders led by a very gray man in the original Mulan named Shan Yu. And in this movie, they are defending against kind of vaguely stated northern invaders. And in both movies, she's found out to be a woman, and she has to find inner strength to and patriotism, I guess, or whatever, to protect the empire, and is considered a hero after leading forces to protect the empire. And this movie tackles a lot of the things that are tackled in the story of Mulan and the movie of Mulan prior to this. You know, her gender, what it means to be a good woman, a good daughter versus a good son, a good man. And she kind of exists in the flow of both of those things by living as a woman and living as a man. We meet our bisexual king. I had the biggest fucking crush on Aladdin and General Shang from Mulan. I will say, I don't know how much this movie meant to be very gay. The only thing I'm gonna give this new movie is it's very gay. It's very, very gay, and gay in a way that somehow was underrepresented in the original Mulan movie. Because I remember I got older and people were like, yes, General Shang, our bisexual king. And I was like, huh? And then I was like, think about it. He wanted to fuck. He wanted to fuck Mulan when he thought that it was Ping or whatever the name was. And then like, oh, I found out you're a woman. That makes the very gay thoughts I have acceptable because you're not a man. Now the 2020 Mulan, gay as hell. In this movie, they don't make out while Mulan is dressed as a man, but you can feel some tension. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Huh, I like that. I like that we're acknowledging, because I remember back when gender bent like Asian media was pretty popular. I don't know if it's still popular, but it was this weird way of skirting around the existence of homosexuality in Asia, and I found it so fascinating. What was that one called? That like K-drama, Coffee Prince, and there was a bunch of them, but they were making out, and I'm like, so you think that's a dude? And you just got away with it, quote unquote, because it's not really a dude, it's a girl. But you wanted to fuck while thinking it was a dude. I'm like, just be gay. People do be gay, in the words of Quinta, whatever her name is. Shout out, she got an Emmy nomination. Anyway, she out there bathing by herself, and you walk into the water and want to have a conversation about your friendship. What? Like, we can be friends if you're not naked in the same water with me. Do we have to do this right now? Anyway, the plot. In Imperial China, Hua Mulan is an adventurous and active girl to the disappointment of her parent Zhao and Li, who hope to one day have her wed to a good husband, because that's their only purpose as a woman at any point in most patriarchal societies. As a young woman, Mulan is arranged to meet with the matchmaker, Fa Mulan, to demonstrate her fitness as a future wife. This component is, paralleled in the original animated movie as well, and it's just like comparing, like if you're gonna compare these two scenes, there's no comparison. She destroys the teapot, proves that she's not much of a, you know, of a lady or whatever, and a disgrace to her family. At that time, there are people coming to invade the empire. In this movie, in comparison to the original, they add a component of like witchcraft, like a witch who is able to use their power to kind of like appear as different people, like different soldiers, in order to attack. And apparently she is working alongside the invaders who are coming towards the empire. Begins the sort of nationwide draft of men to fight the incoming army. So they come getting recruits, and the only man in Mulan's family is her father, who is old and ailing and will undoubtedly die. So Mulan cuts her hair off. Well, no, not in this movie. In the animated movie, it was so dramatic. She cut her hair off with the sword, takes his armor, takes his horses, and flees out into the night to pose as a son instead of a daughter. And of course, this is where she poses as a soldier. She's trained like everyone else, communicates with men, and it's just so disappointing as it is in real life. There's no songs. I know it's supposed to be live action, so they're not gonna break into song, but like, this movie is so fucking boring. like it's the same thing. It's the same movie essentially. They just added a witch. But this movie is such a sucky ass version of this movie, because like, we don't sing "They'll bring honor to us all." We don't sing "Be a man, you must be swift as a horse." Instead, what they do is they put this shitty like instrumental that plays in the background that you'll recognize. And I'm like, I don't want Diet Mulan. Instead of doing like the cutesy misogynistic song of like "A girl worth fighting for," instead we just listen to men have misogynistic conversation about how we don't want a wife that thinks too much. We just want her to cook stuff. At least it had a jaunty tune to it before fuck. And I think the most disappointing aspect of this, well, there's so many, but of the things that they changed that I find very odd. In the original Mulan, she's found out to be a woman. She gets, if I remember correctly, I haven't seen it in years. I'm gonna watch it after this. She gets injured and they have to tape her up, and they see that she has breasts. And then they find out, oh shit, it's a woman. This one, she just like tells them that she's a woman because lying stunts her powers that for some reason she has. Apparently she's also part witch or some shit. I don't know. It's very confusing. But like, the witch was like, "You're lessening your power by lying to them." So she's like, okay, fine, I'm a woman. They do the avalanche scene and it's shit. It's so shit. And compared to the original like avalanche scene of Mulan, the avalanche scene is so iconic, dude. I remember as a kid just being awed by the avalanche scene. And she tells them that she's a woman. She's expelled from the army, luckily not killed because you got killed for everything in this movie, so I'm surprised they didn't. And eventually she ends up chatting with the witch, who says that she was shunned by her people for being a strong woman like Mulan was. And she fights for the invaders because he treats her as an equal and no one else does. She ends up dying, the witch, very randomly. So I was very confused about what they even added her as a story element for. I don't know what, maybe she was in the original like story of Mulan, but as far as like comparing it to the movie, I don't know what she was added for, because they got rid of her pretty quickly. The witch like sacrifices herself so that Mulan doesn't get killed, but she was kind of pointless, I guess. They were sympathetic because they're similar, you know, cut from a similar cloth or whatever. But anyway, there's a fight. The emperor apparently is Jet Li. Long story short, the battle commences. You know, Mulan and the emperor and the emperorship, the empire wins. She's considered a hero, and she's able to go back home with, you know, basically being a hero of the empire, and she's invited to join the Imperial Army as an officer. And yeah, that's the movie. because that's the story of Mulan. I mean, basically at the end of the day, it's just Mulan. If you know the story of Mulan, it's some other elements. Well, I shouldn't say if you know the story of Mulan. If you've seen the original Mulan movie, there are similar things to it. I've never actually read the story of Mulan, if you will. So there might be some elements of the original story of Mulan that they added in here. But if you know the gist of Mulan, it's Mulan, okay? Now, like I said, as a defense, there was a lot of things going around circumstantially around the movie that made it a less viable decision to go see the movie. COVID. That's enough of a reason. Even if that wasn't the case, a bunch of controversies in relation to China, particularly genocide. It being an adaptation of a movie that you liked in '98 as a child and being a live action version of it that just won't be as good, and you know it won't. Also in defense though, it is a beautiful piece of shit. The combat is cool. The attire is great. Some of the CGI, yeah. But for the most part, a beautiful and technically well-made movie that has absolutely no emotional footing. And because of that, it's just people saying stuff that goes nowhere. The only person that I kinda sorta felt anything towards was the bisexual king. He's the not the king. The guy. He's another soldier in this movie. In the original animated movie, he was the general, but this guy is just like another soldier. Because he was the only decent actor, first of all, in the like main story that was on screen for any period of time. And I just kind of appreciated that, whether it meant to or not, inadvertently or not, they made him real gay. And I appreciate that, because they just acted like that wouldn't have been a factor at all. Or maybe some people will still read this movie and be like, they're just buddies. They're just buddies in the army. Just be naked around each other all the time. That's just what it is. Get used to it. Whatever. I did appreciate that it seemed, again, I don't know whether or not it was intentional or not, but it seemed real gay, and they seemed to accept that it's real gay, and I appreciate that. Final verdict. This movie sucked. This movie was bad. This movie was a waste of my damn time. It's pretty if it were just like a fan cam. Like no acting, just beautiful things happening. Gorgeous. But it's not worth the foolishness that took place around it. It's not worth watching this over regular ass Mulan. There is no point at any point in my life that I would prefer to watch this over the original Mulan, or just reading the actual story of Mulan actually sounds way more interesting to me at this point in juncture in my life. Let me know if you've seen this movie. And I'm also curious if you've seen it without being aware of any of, again, the surrounding circumstances around the movie. And I want to know, did you hate it as much as I did? I did really hate it. And if you add on the controversies, it really doesn't make it worth it. Otherwise, the movie was garbage. Garbage. Trash. Basura. Sregi tong. Anyway, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe to us here on More Butter. Feel free to check me out. I'm KennieJD on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. All of them are KennieJD if you ever want to find me. Yeah, and don't forget fuck. And don't forget to butter your popcorn.